We have a legitimate thing today. All of a sudden I realized that I thought I didn't have my notes. It's going to get interesting. So listen, we are starting a new series today called Stay on Course. I know it's totally easy. We all have our own things. So the last 4 weeks we've been talking about blessings and how blessings help us, how they enhance our lives. We talked about the prayer of Jabez, how that's for everybody, an everyday person. God grants their prayers. We talked about blessing our children. We talked about blessings don't cost us a thing. To bless others, to bless our food, to talk, to be blessed, and how you guys have an anointing on you. And because of that, God says, do not touch my anointed ones. And the blessings come for you. And then we talk about this coming 4 weeks is nothing but talking about how do we prepare for blessings. You know, one of the biggest things that they always talk about when you want to be promoted in a job or you want to have something else, you first have to be in position for that. You have to be prepared. You have to get there. You have to get the ticket on the bus. If you want to be a doctor, you're probably going to need to go to college to be a doctor. Now, I know there's movies about somebody pretending to be a doctor, but legitimately, if you want to be a doctor, you're going to have to prepare. You've got to get into position. And oftentimes we have things that happen in our lives or way we live our lives. We want the blessing, but sometimes we're not always in position for the blessing. And some of that is staying on course. So I think of some fun things. Listen, when I was 16, my first car was a Subaru. It was a 1984. I was very proud of my Subaru. Bought it with my own money. Windshield wipers didn't work very well. So when you turn on the windshield wipers, if you used them too much, the left one would just hang out over here. And then you'd have to stop, get out the pliers, and twist the windshield wipers on. I'm thinking of this today. My pair of pliers that I used all the time just broke in half this last week. Those pliers I use to get my windshield wiper to work. And I remember being so proud. I have my mom riding with me in the car. You know, we're driving down I-76, and all of a sudden we get in a big rainstorm. And my mom couldn't see. She didn't need to see. She wasn't driving. I could see pretty kind of okay. And I didn't turn on my wipers. And she's sitting there and finally she's like, turn your wipers on. And I'm like, I can't. They'll stop working. Oh, Lord Jesus, help us. You know, a little stressed out. But we needed to stay on course. And my mom felt like we needed wipers to do so. Now, I didn't think they were as necessary because my dad used to say, just look out and watch the line. As long as you can watch the white line on the left side of your window, you're okay. That's done me well for a lot of years, man. When I can't see out the front, I just keep on going, looking down to the left. You ought to see me on the fog on I-25, 90 mile an hour. I don't go that fast. I'm kidding. But that's one way you can see. Then another time I had my mom with me, and we're driving, and we get into a hailstorm. And it is so bad, I had my wipers on. It was in my pickup, and I had to stop. Have you ever been in that hailstorm that's so bad, even when you stop, you feel like you're going off the road because the water's moving and everything's just blasting? It was so intense. I couldn't stay on course. I couldn't tell where I was. I was afraid I was going to go off the road. I didn't know where I was. I was completely disoriented. And sometimes in life, as we go through different things, we find ourselves in a spot where we get slightly disoriented, where we're not sure where we're exactly supposed to be going or what it is we're headed to. And that sometimes causes us a lot of stress. It also causes us to get out of position for the blessings. Because when you're distracted and when you're in all of these other places, what did the teachers used to tell me, Phil? Could you please get your head out of the clouds? My head wasn't in the clouds. I was just bored. They weren't talking about anything interesting anyway. But the point is, we have to get ourselves to a place where we can kind of regroup, where we can focus and stay on course. And even when we're in the bad storms, and even when we're in the midst of everything else, how do you stay on course? How do you get there? So, my first point today is steady now. Why would I say steady now? You guys know in the old ships How many of you know that on the old ships, the steerman couldn't see where he was going? He's in his own little place. He's got his little wheel. You saw like we watched the Captain Crunch commercials. But he's not looking out. He's not able to see. He actually has some lookout that is just telling him what to do. He doesn't know. And so this person that's looking out there is looking out there, and he'll just say, starboard a little. Everybody know that? I don't know what that means. It means a little to the right, right? Watch your right side. Oh, okay. And then the other guy will just yell, full and by. Because the captain doesn't even know how much wind he has. He doesn't know what's going on. So it's talking about the sails are full. Your sails are doing, we're moving at a good clip, you know. I mean, 30 miles a day, they're rocking and rolling. We've got the sails full. We're full and by. Or left for a little, which means they want you to head into the wind. Because, you know, when you don't have an engine on the boat, you kind of are at the mercy of the wind. And then you'll hear him just say, steady now. And that means just keep going and doing what you're doing. And sometimes in our own lives, believe it or not, we get into a place where we're not sure what we're supposed to be doing. And sometimes we feel the need to leave the wheel and run out and look over the ship and see what we're supposed to do. And you know, that can be catastrophic. So I don't know all the details. I never watched the movie, but I heard the Titanic sank because the captain wasn't driving the ship. That's part of the issue. He wasn't there. I don't know all the details, but don't you think that's important that somebody should stay at the wheel and drive? You know, they say it's really distracting in our cars when you're not driving and the car's in motion. It's important that somebody's holding on to the wheel. Yet in our own lives, we let go of the wheel all the time to go see what we're supposed to. We get distracted. Are you going to trust your lookout? Who is our lookout? If Christ is our lookout, if God is going to guide us and direct us in our lives, and if God's going to tell us what we need to do, and God's going to say a little to the left, a little to the right, watch your sails, then are we going to listen to that? Or are we going to run out and start to look? But then it gets even harder. Because when you get into a storm, what do? How do you know where you're going? Whether you're an airline pilot or you're driving a ship, you better know how to use a compass. Because you're going to be in clouds, you're going to be in weather, you're going to be in sunshine, you're going to be in darkness, you're going to be disoriented and oriented all at the same time. You never know. I'm telling you guys, whether life is good and it feels like you're in a cloudy day, the sun's still shining. Whether it's a beautiful sunny day, the sun's still shining. Whether you're in the middle of a major storm, the sun's shining somewhere else. So how are we going to walk through our lives and get through a place and to a place that we can trust our guide? Are we going to let God tell us, steady now? Are we going to let God say, starboard a little? Are we going to listen to that? So we have these different issues that come up. And think about it. We live in a day and age now. Bill was just telling me now, you can push a button on a car and it parallel parks for you. I can't believe this. This is great, right? We've got I have the backup camera in my pickup. We had it in the patrol cars. What a great thing. Throw that car in reverse, you can see everything behind you. It's a wonderful thing. We have technology that we never had before. Nowadays, we don't worry about so many different things. We're not afraid to go out. You know, my grandpa, his biggest excuse all the time is, Grandpa, you want to come and do, I don't know. We'll have to see how the weather does. Grandpa, there's a 10-day out there already. They say it's going to be good. You can come. But because he came from a world where you didn't know the weather and you got trapped in the weather, he get a little apprehensive. You know, those weathermen, they don't always know what they're talking about. But they are getting it pretty good. I mean, they're doing a lot better than they used to. The fact of the matter is we have so much technology in this day and age, we expect technology in our lives. And there's no way they can replicate it. I thought about this today. We talk about cloning and all of this sort of stuff, right? Because we can make something from something. How come they haven't gotten the dinosaurs to come back yet? How come the mammoths aren't walking the earth yet? If they're so good, how come those things haven't happened? Because they need something to work with. That's like trying to make your own dirt. You've heard that joke where some scientist gets together with God and he's saying something and they're like, I can do miracles too. You think God's so good, I can replicate stuff. And God said, okay. He said, well then make some dirt. And the scientist grabs some of God's dirt and he makes more dirt. And God said, no. Make your own dirt. Don't use mine. And the fact of the matter is oftentimes there's so many other things in this world that we look at, that we rely on this technology, and we forget to recognize that our worlds are not that sophisticated in the sense that we have it all dialed in. We can't just hit a button on the computer and tell us how next week is going to be. You can't. If any of you know how your kids are going to be when they grow up, let me in on the clue. We don't know. There are so many variables. You don't even know how work is going to go next week. You don't even know what's going on in your world next week. They may be able to tell us what's happening with the weather. They may be able to say, hey, we see patterns coming. But there's nobody that can say, this is how your life will be on Friday. Nobody can predict the things that upset us when all of a sudden we learn somebody suddenly died, somebody's suddenly sick. All of these things that happen in our lives that cause us to get off track. They cause us to get into a place where we're not sure. And those are the very, very things that cause us a high level of stress. Those are also the very things that pull us off our course. Why do we talk about these olden day things into nowadays? Is because they actually had to have more faith than we do now. They didn't have anything to trust. Can you imagine if we get on a cruise ship right now, we think nothing of it. When I flew to Africa, you can hit the thing on the airplane and it'll tell you right where the plane is, right where we're flying, and our course. So I know how many more hours this flight's going to be. I know what country we're flying over. Everything. It's right there. What a beautiful thing. What about when you don't know? You're just guessing. Think about the people exploring the U.S. when it was first being founded. Going on a ship for months at a time, having no idea, just trusting some guy's word. For all you know, he took you in a big cyclical loop and just took you to some place to dump you off. You wouldn't know. These are things that happen in our lives where we go, wait a second, what are we focused on? Who are we trusting? Are we always going to try and trust everything that we see out around us to give us the facts? Or are we going to trust God? So I want to talk about Psalm chapter 119. You guys know that's the longest chapter in the Bible? The longest. So I thought we'd practice memorizing it this morning. I'm kidding. We're only going to go through verses 1 through 9. But it says this: you are blessed when you stay on course. Ironic, huh? We're talking about blessings. We're talking about staying on course. We're going to talk about blessings a lot. Well, we talked about it for the last 4 weeks. Now we're going to talk about staying on course the next 4. I think it's important. If you want to be blessed, you need to stay on course. And if you're going to stay on course, you have to recognize that not you will always know the direction you're going. But instead, we're going to have to listen to God and say, where are we going? Left, right. How do we navigate this storm? And believe it or not, we're going to encounter storms, and that's just part of it. And it goes on to say, walking steadily on the road revealed by God. It didn't say walking steadily on the road you predict. You notice the word revealed? I loved it. I loved it because it's not an exact translation. This is in the Message, so it doesn't exactly say that. But what I love about the word revealed is that is exactly how God works. He doesn't give you the treasure map that says, this is what you'll do for the next 90 days. Instead, it gets revealed. You ever been on a scavenger hunt? You got to run over here. Alyssa does this with the kids. My kids love it. Lily comes home talking about this scavenger hunt. They had to go do this, and then they have to go do that, and then they go do this. And every step you take, you get a new clue. Isn't that great? That's what we get to do in life. We're like, I have no idea what I'm doing next week, because God's got us on a huge scavenger hunt. Maybe next week you're going to have to sing for the Pope. I don't know what you're going to do, but we're all running this race. What are we doing? Where are things at? And it's being revealed to you by God. The guy giving you directions. You're steering the ship, and he's going to reveal. This is what you do. That's what you do. Go left, go right. Let the sails down. Head into the wind. Oh, I get it. I see what. And then he says, you're blessed when you follow his directions. Listen, guys, I didn't even have to make this up. It was right there in the Bible. Easy peasy. You're blessed when you follow his directions. Because if he's guiding you, you're in position to get him. You ever see the people juggle? Juggle, 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 juggle. Listen, in order to catch that stuff, you have to be in position. Because if you're not in position and they walk around and they keep going, and if they don't stay in position, they can't keep it going. And the same thing happens. If you want to be blessed, you have to be in position. So it goes on to say, doing your best to find him. It didn't say you'll be perfect. It didn't say you're going to walk on water. It didn't say you're always going to be righteous. It says doing your best. You know, the biggest thing we do with our kids in school, I mean, I don't know, maybe some of you parents do it different than I do, but we encourage our kids. So when our kids are like, well, I only missed 2 on this test, or I did this, we're like, that's pretty good. That's awesome. I'm glad you're plugging away. We encourage them. You go, well, you're a failure. I hope you didn't put our last name on that paper. Missed 2. I can't believe no child of mine misses 2. We don't talk that way. God doesn't talk that way. He just wants us to do our best. We can do that. It's not so hard. I can give it my best. And then he goes on to say, that's right. You don't go off on your own. How many of us do that? That's exactly how you go off course. Going off on your own. You know what? I'm going to help God out. Abraham did that. Abraham and Sarah said, you know what? God said we'd have a kid. He said we'd have a kid 10 years ago. Nothing's going on. We're going to fix this. We can take care of this. And so they had Ishmael, not by Sarah. They helped God out. It caused them some problems. In fact, it's still causing the world problems to this day because there's such a fight between Christians and Muslims. Why? Isn't that interesting? One thing. And the ramifications that has had on the world. Interesting. Goes on to say, you walk straight along the road he set. Again, if you want to be blessed, walk on course, walk straight on the road he gave you. You, God, prescribed the right way to live. Now you expect us to live it. He's saying, hey, God, you told us how to live, and you want us to do that. Oh, okay. And that my steps might be steady, keeping to the course you set. Isn't that interesting? He guides our steps. We talked about that last week. Man makes his own plan, that God directs his steps. And it's really important that we continue to do that and do what God tells us to do. And then at the last, he says, I'm going to do what you tell me to do. Don't ever walk off and leave me. Because what would you do if the direction guy quit giving you directions? It was my favorite as kids. We didn't have GPS. I can still remember getting lost in Kansas City. My mom is telling my dad the turns to make, and my dad is trying to navigate or drive, and inevitably he's in the far left lane. No, you got to go right. Oh, we'll never make it, back and forth. And all of these frustrations, we've got to have the person navigating who is God, not the technology, not the world around us, but God. Are we engaging God himself to navigate our lives? And then that brings us to point number 2. Luffer a little. Did you guys hear luffer a little? You know what that means with sailing? Luffer a little? Steer into the wind. Get into the wind. Well, if you go too hard straight into the wind, what does it do? It messes up the sails. It also slows the boat down. So if we're starting to get off course or we're starting to have trouble, we need to luffer a little to take our speed down. But what else does the wind do in our worlds? The wind is inconvenient. Those of you who live in Carr, Colorado may have experienced wind once or twice. Okay? I can still see our trampoline flying in the sky and then wrapping around a tree like a taco. Whoop! And it was done that fast. The wind is inconvenient, but the wind is necessary. And we need the wind in order to keep moving. In order to stay on track, we actually need a little bit of the hardship against us to keep us on path, to get us to the place where we're going to get the blessing. It's hard to think, because we want to make life gravy for our kids, it's hard to think that life should ever not be anything but gravy for us. Don't you think we should have a little bit of ease all the time in every turn we make? That's what we want. And so immediately when one little thing rises up, there's a level of frustration that comes out of us that we just cannot comprehend. It's like, why is this why did this have to be? No, we need to buffer a little. The wind's going to slow us down. It's going to pump us backwards. It's okay. A little bit of that is good. So then we go on to the next part of this. Think about this for a second. How many other people have fought wind in the Bible? You know, I always talk about the Bible says different things, and we take parallels from the Bible. And one of the biggest parallels that we can take from the Bible is what some of the other people in the Bible did. Abraham, did he face hardships? Did he not have hard times? He lied to a king about his wife because he was afraid he was going to die. David was a wealthy, loaded man in the end. But what did he have to go through? He's running from his father-in-law all the time who was trying to kill him. Definitely had some demons. There were some issues there. They could have gone to family counseling, but they didn't, because issues rise up. We fight the wind. We all have battles that come in our lives. Esther, she doesn't even have parents. She's raised by her uncle. She gets drafted in because she's smoking hot. She gets drafted into these harem of women that are going to say, well, one of you are going to become the king's wife. You think that's what she wanted to be? Okay. This is well, maybe I'll be selected to be king. Maybe that'd be kind of cool. We'll get this, we'll get that. And maybe life will be better. All the while, all sorts of bad things are happening to the extent that she has to put her life on the line. Is that wind? Is that wind? Is that luffing a little? Is that changing her course? She has to trust God. Her uncle's saying, these are the things that are happening. We need your help. Esther, oh, I get it. Okay. But she had to put her life on the line. We all have these things that are pushing against us that help steer us in the right direction. It's not bad. We think everything's bad. Oh man, everything's gonna... No, that's good. It's pushing us a little. It's giving us a little pressure. I've told you guys this before. A friend of mine said to me, I'll never forget, I was a young adult and I'm like, I don't know about this. You know, I'm getting this thing. And he's like, a little pressure is good for you. And I'm sitting there going, you think it's a little pressure? Stressing me out. I don't want this kind of pressure. What are you talking about? A little pressure is good. It'll be good for you. Well, he was right. I don't like admitting anybody's right beside myself. But the point, no, I'm kidding. The point is, it was important. And it was good and it helped me. Jesus was perfect. You don't think he had stress? He sweat blood. He sat before God and said, is there any other way we can do this? I don't want to have to go through what I'm about to go through. But nevertheless, not my will, but thy will be done. Okay, God, I'll buffer a little. I'll walk into the wind. I'll take this on. It's easier said than done. Paul. We talk about all of the stuff Paul did in the New Testament. Hey, listen, he started out as a jerk. I've told the kids this and stumping the preacher. Paul started out as a jerk. But at the end of the day, Paul ended up becoming one of the greatest parts of Christianity. And what he did influenced the entire world and generations to come with writing the Bible and many of the books. And Paul reaches out to this person, and he's a missionary, and he's orchestrating churches. He's working all over, doing all these different things, and he gets to go to jail, gets locked up, and he goes through hell, and he writes this in Philippians chapter 4, verses 10 through 14. Think about this. He's in jail. And the church is telling him, man, Paul, we're sorry to see you there. We care about you. Hope all is well. And Paul says, how I praise the Lord that you are concerned about me. Thank God that somebody still cares. Because this has been hard. I know you have always been concerned for me, but you didn't have the chance to help me. Not that I was ever in need. Listen to that outlook in life. Because if you read the New Testament, clearly there were times Paul was in need of things, but he spiritually had his needs met. And he looked at his life that way and said, not that I was ever in need. We talked about blessings last week. We talked about how important it is to recognize the blessings we already have and realize, are we in need? And then he goes on to say, for I have learned how to be content with whatever I have. That, my friends, gets us in position to stay on course. One of the biggest things that takes us on course is not being content with what we have. I can say that not content in our jobs, not content in our marriages, not content in our families, not content in our homes, not content with our cars, not content with our iPhones. It doesn't matter. We all have things that can get us distracted and pull us with a level of discontentment. Oh, you want to be in position for the blessing, we need to be in position to remain content. And then he goes on to say, I know how to live on almost nothing or with everything. This is the famous scripture, I know how to be abased and how to abound. And he says, I have learned the secret of living in every situation, whether it is with a full stomach or empty, with plenty or little. For I can do everything through Christ. That's the big one everybody says, Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. What is that about? Stay in the course. If he's telling me where I can go, I can guide my ship, I can stay the course. And I can do anything he's telling me to do. Many, many times, that's where we lose sight. That's where we miss it. Because all of a sudden, the temptation around us is, I'm not sure if he knows what he's talking about. I'm going to double check this. We all know Ron Reagan said, trust but verify. But with God, maybe we should trust a little bit more than we verify. Just saying. And he goes on to say, even so, you have done well to share with me in my present difficulty. He just said, I know what it's like to eat. I know what it's like to starve. I know what it's like to be happy. I know what it's like to be discontent. But I'm blessed. But thank you for sharing with me, because right now is really hard. I mean, I can't think of a better politically correct way to phrase, I'm going through a really hard time, but I'm blessed. And thank you for caring about me, because this matters more than anything else. And I think we need to remember that luffing a little puts us in hard places. But at the end, you can still beat the devil. You're winning. Don't forget that. You're blessed. More blessings are coming in spite of everything that we see. More good is coming. My dad used to always say, hang in there. Just hang in there. You can do it. Hang in there. My grandpa has us riding these wild Mustangs, and we're trying to break them to ride, and they're not. I know these horse whisperers, I don't believe it. But the point of the matter is, we're going crazy on us. My grandpa'd be like, just ride her to the fare thee well. Hang in there. I'm trying. Think I'm going to die. The fact of the matter is that's how it feels in our world. It's how our life feels. But hang in there. We're okay. You got to love for a little. It's important. It's going to make you stronger. It's going to make you better. It's going to keep you on course. And the blessings are going to come in. And no matter what, you are going to be blessed. And you have to stay the course to get there. Will you please stand with me? We as the Car Community Church will always present Christ's open doors of heaven to anybody and everybody. If you'd like to make Jesus your Savior, you simply say, Jesus, I'm sorry for my sins. Come into my heart, and I will serve you with all of my ability. If you